हरि ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। सबको इसी तरह a very warm welcome is extended to each and everyone this morning. Those of you who have joined us physically here at the Mandir at 40 Todd Street, San Fernando. Indeed, to those of you who are viewing online, either on YouTube or on Facebook, Shubh Swagatam. This morning we've come together as a family, and I will emphasize that word, a family, to join in our glorification of Bhagwan, to offer our puja, to offer our love and our adorations. This morning as we come together in that sense of family, let us gaze at that form of Bhagwan that we find most endearing, most appealing to us. And let us focus our mind on that form as we offer our complete love to Him. As we begin this morning, I invite those present to stand as we engage in invocation mantra. And as you stand, keep fixing your gaze on that form of Bhagwan. With that form firmly entrenched in our minds now, let us close our eyes and assume that position of reverence as we engage in invocation. Hari Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Shri Saraswate Namaha. Om Shri Guru Charana Kamalebhyo Namaha. Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva Sarvakareshu Sarvara Jayanti Mangala Kali Bhadrakali Kapalini Durga Kshama Shiva Dhatri Swaha Swadha Namostute Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Bande Jagadguru Nagindraharaya Trilochanaya Bhasmangaragaya Maheshwaraya Nityaya Shuddhaya Digambaragaya Tasmai Nakaraya Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Ramaya Ramabhadraya Ramachandram Vedase Raghunathaya Nathaya Sitaye Pataye Namaha. Om Manojavam Marutatulyabhegyam Jetindriyam Buddhimatam Varishtam Vatatmajam Varadyutamukam Shri Ramadutam Shri Namami. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om. Bhaitiye, please resume your seats as we join now in Kirtan glorifying the name of Bhagwan.
Jai 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 Gananayaka Jai Jai Vigna Vinashaka Jai 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 Gananayaka Jai Jai Vigna Vinashaka Jai 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 Gananayaka Jai Jai Vigna Vinashaka Jai 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 Gananayaka Jai Jai प्रदायका जय शुभ मंगलदायका विद्या बुद्धि प्रदायका गजवरना गौरी नंदन 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 गजवरना 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 गौरी नंदन गजवरना 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 गौरी नंदन गंगाधर शिव शंभु नंदन गंगाधर शिव शंभु नंदन जय 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 गणनायका जय जय विघ्न विनाशका जय 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 गणनायका जय जय विघ्न विनाशका जय शुभ मंगलदायका विद्या बुद्धि प्रदायका जय शुभ मंगलदायका विद्या बुद्धि प्रदायका गजवरना गौरी नंदन 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 गजवरना 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 गौरी नंदन गजवरना 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 गौरी नंदन गंगाधर शिव शंभु नंदन गंगाधर शिव शंभु नंदन जय 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 गणनायका जय जय विघ्न विनाशका जय 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 गणनायका जय जय विघ्न विनाशका जय शुभ मंगलदायका विद्या बुद्धि प्रदायका जय शुभ मंगलदायका विद्या बुद्धि प्रदायका विद्या बुद्धि प्रदायका विद्या बुद्धि प्रदायका
प्रेम से बोले श्री गणेश भगवान की जय. We continue now as we glorify Bhagwan, and we invite everyone to join together, those of you physically, those of you viewing us virtually as well, as we chant the verses of Hanuman Chalisa. We glorify his name and recognize his omnipotence.
श्री गुरु चरण सरोज रज निज मन मुकुर सुधार वरनो रघुबर विमल जसु जो दायक फल चार बुद्धिहीन तनु जानिके सुमिरो पवन कुमार, बल बुद्धि विद्या देहु मोहि, हरहु कलेश विकार। जय 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 हनुमान, जय 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 हनुमान, जय 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 हनुमान, जय 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 हनुमान। जय हनुमान ज्ञान गुण सागर, जय कपीस तिहु लोक उजागर। रामदूत अतुलित बल धामा, अंजनी पुत्र पवन सुत नामा। महावीर विक्रम बजरंगी, कुमति निवार सुमति के संगी। कंचन वरन विराज सुवेशा, कानन कुंडल कुंचित केसा। हाथ वज्र और ध्वजा विराजे, कांधे मूंज जनेऊ साजे। शंकर सुवन केसरी नंदन, तेज प्रताप महाजगवंदन। विद्यावान गुणी अति चातुर, राम काज करिवे को आतुर। प्रभु चरित्र सुनिवे को रसिया, राम लखन सीता मन बसिया। सूक्ष्म रूप धरि सियहि दिखावा, विकट रूप धरि लंक जरावा। भीम रूप धरि असुर संहारे, रामचंद्र के काज सवारे। लाए सजीवन लखन जियाए, श्री रघुवीर हर्षि उर लाए। रघुपति कीन्ही बहुत बड़ाई, तुम मम प्रिय भरत सम भाई। सहस बदन तुम रोयस गावे, अस कहि श्रीपति कंठ लगावे। सनकादिक ब्रह्मादि मुनीसा, नारद शारद सहित अहिसा। यम कुबेर दिगपाल जहाते, कवि कोविद कहि सके कहाते। तुम उपकार सुग्रीवहि कीन्हा, राम मिलाए राजपद दीना। जय 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 हनुमान, जय 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 हनुमान, जय 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 हनुमान, जय 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 हनुमान। तुम्हरो मंत्र विभीषण माना, लंकेश्वर भय सब जग जाना। युग सहस्र योजन पर भानु, लील्यो ताहि मधुर फल जानू। प्रभु मुद्रिका मेरे मुख माहि, जलधि लागिए अचरज नाही। दुर्गम काज जगत के जेते, सुगम अनुग्रह तुम्हारे देते। राम दुआरे तुम रखवारे, होत न आज्ञा बिनु पैसारे। सब सुख लहे तुम्हारी शरणा, तुम रक्षक काहू को डरना। आपने तेज सम्हारो आपे, तीनों लोक हांकते कापे। भूत पिशाच निकट नहीं आवे, महावीर जब नाम सुनावे। नासे रोग हरे सब पीरा, जपत निरंतर हनुमत बीरा। संकट से हनुमान छुड़ावे, मन क्रम वचन ध्यान जो लावे। सब पर राम तपस्वी राजा, जिनके काज सकल भर दीन जानकी माता, राम रसायन तुम्हारी पासा, सदा रहो रघुपति के दासा। जय 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 हनुमान, जय 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 हनुमान, जय 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 हनुमान, जय 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 हनुमान। तुम्हारे भजन राम को पावे, जन्म जन्म के दुख बिसरावे, अंत काल रघुबरपुर जाई, जहाँ जन्म हरि भक्त कहाई। और देवता चेतन धरई, हनुमत से सर्व सुख करई। संकट कटे मिटे सब पीरा, जो सुमिरै हनुमत बलबीरा। जय 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 हनुमान गोसाई, कृपा करहु गुरुदेव की नाई। जो शत बार पाठ कर कोई, जूत ही बंदी महासुख होई। जो यह पढ़े हनुमान चालीसा, होई सिद्धि साखी गौरीसा। तुलसीदास सदा हरि चेरा, की जय नाथ हृदय महाधीरा। जय जय संकट हरन, मंगल मूर्ति रूप। राम लखन सीता सहित, हृदय बसहु सुरभूप। जय 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 हनुमान, 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 जय 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 हनुमान।
प्रेम से बोले महावीर स्वामी की जय। जय बजरंगबली, जय 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 हनुमान। Jai Sitaram once more to each and every one of you, both of you, those of you who are here with us physically at the Mandir, and those of you who are viewing us online. This morning, our theme, family. Family. Before we get into that theme, I invite us to just jode our palms together as we engage in mantra, propitiating Bhagwan. Hari Om. शान्ताकारं भुजगशयनं पद्मनाभं सुरेशं विश्वाधारं गगनसदृशं मेघवर्णं शुभागं लक्ष्मीकान्तं कमलनयनं योगिविद्यानगम्यं वन्दे विष्णु भवभयहरं सर्वलोकैकनाथम्। ॐ शान्ति 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 हरि ओम। In more traditional times, when we hear the term family, we think of that unit which was either divided into a nuclear family, that is mother, father, children, or an extended family where you have grandparents, nana, nani, aja, aji, and others living together in the same household. Within modern times, there have been new and very different definitions of family and what family is, and I won't delve into that. I will just confine to the traditional definitions. And again, that word tradition. Very often it is said that the Vivah Sanskar or the marriage ceremony starts that process of developing that concept of family. And again, it is said that the family is the foundation stone upon which civilized society is built upon. This past week gone by, we've had the great fortune of coming together as a Mandir family to celebrate the occasion of Janmashtami, which was on Thursday night. And it was a very, very wonderful celebration for those persons who were here. And again, we see the decor, especially the very beautiful decorations and embellishments around the Murti of Shri Krishna. And that was as a result of the hard work of the Mandir family and those dedicated members in having that decor put in place. We came together, we offered puja, we offered kirtan, abhishek was performed, archana was performed, and then palana puja was performed. But as I made the note on that night, things were a little bit different in the family because our numbers were reduced, and that was not exclusive to the Mandir. I had cause to observe other Mandirs in Trinidad and Tobago, and there was a similar occurrence. The numbers physically were small, and there are many reasons for it. But nonetheless, the vigor was there of that family, that you joined together, you offered puja together, you offer your love together, and you strengthened that bond together. Prior to that was the observance of the festival of Raksha Bandhan, again involving family, whether it be biological or otherwise, and again strengthening that bond. This week, however, gone by, there were two occurrences out of many, which struck us, or should have struck us. And the more recent one would have been the incident that occurred at the San Rafael Roman Catholic Church, where the presiding or resident father was accosted in the wee hours of the morning while he was in the church residence, tied up, hog-tied, it was reported. The church was ransacked. His personal items, including whatever money he had on him, his cell phone, other valuables, and his vehicle were stolen by armed bandits. This was in the church. I think it occurred around 1 a.m. in the morning. The vehicle was subsequently found somewhere in Sandy Grande. Perpetrators have not yet been located. But the commentary from Father Martin Sergio and others, which was captured in the newspaper yesterday, speaks and he mirrors the comments that have made by Pastor Clive Dottin and other religious leaders. It mirrors the downward descent which we as a society in this country are on. Not that we are heading towards it, we are on it, full blown. And that was one of the reasons that as members of the management committee we recognized that issue of crime and personal safety and security was one of the reasons why we thought it fit to start the Janmashtami service earlier and to end earlier. This was not something that we would normally do, but we must be practical and recognize. And the call from Father Martin Sergio to all of his brothers in the clergy, and by extension, not confined to the Roman Catholic faith, but all persons, is that we are all one family in Trinidad and Tobago. And we must all be our brother's keeper, especially in times such as this. So if you see something, say something in order to protect your family, your brothers, your sisters, and your community. We saw evidence of that recently in Kapara, I believe it was, where persons were proceeding to steal cable. And the villagers got together, and some of the bandits accidentally fell down. We don't know how that happened. But they were nonetheless secured, and the police alerted, and they came and took away the persons who were responsible for that criminal act. So we are seeing this whole concept of family, but in different views. In a more personal way, not that the attack on the church is not personal, it is very much personal. But in a more personal way yesterday, again reported in the newspaper, were the pleas, very stirring, very formidable, of a A mother who lost her only son, Nikhil Luthra, some days before. And many of you may have heard about it, may have read about it, but you know, at the risk of becoming cynical, we are having murders by the twos and threes every single day. So we have now become desensitized, unless it hits us close to home, about the killings that are taking place without any sort of consequence. And this young man, I think he's 34 years old, a businessman, the owner of a shipping company, was some days prior sitting with his friends in a secure location. Some would regard it as an upscale location, the residence at 1 Woodbrook Place, when a gunman, so if you don't know, I'm just alerting you briefly to the facts, a gunman who was obviously there waiting with his accomplices, jumped the fence, went to the table where this gentleman was sitting with his friends, and opened fire with high-powered weapons, killing Nikhil and seriously wounding 2 others. Immediately persons talk, well, that guy is involved in something or gang-related or whatever. But the story then comes out about the reality of this individual. And yes, he was the business owner, but his mother, who spoke of him, spoke about his involvement in the charitable organizations in which he was participating, about the charity that he extended. She herself is the head of an NGO supporting young women and at-risk adults. They live in Shugwanas. And other persons that as Anteshti Sanskar spoke out about this young man, cut down in the prime of his life, seemingly for no reason. The reports coming out of the police service now is that he was not the intended target. Those are the words used. But as a former prime minister said, oh, that's just collateral damage. But are we prepared to accept that? Because you now have a family, one of many, who's been impacted in such a fundamental way by an act of crime. And as I was telling my Dulhan yesterday when we were driving and talking about this whole concept about criminal activity and person's safety and so on, I say, you know, we hear the numbers about where we are at, how many hundreds, and what the projection is like for the end of the year, and this is going to be a record-breaking year. And we have now descended into talking about numbers. And we've been doing that for some years now. Numbers, whether it is 500 or 400 or 300 or whatever the number is, that's what we're talking about. And the authorities pat themselves on the back to say, well, you know, the numbers have gone down. And the numbers are not so bad. But those numbers represent people. They represent families. Families who are impacted in a way in which, unless we are touched by it, we cannot imagine. When we lose a loved one due to illness or old age or whatever it may be, we feel so fundamentally that loss. Think about a loved one taken from you for seemingly no reason, in the prime of their lives with so much before them, how that hurts at a fundamental level. And if you haven't read the thoughts of the mother of Nikhil, I will invite you to do so, because she was very forthright. She said, I'm not being political. I'm not going to quote her because I don't want to take away from what she said. But I want us to listen to one shloka of Bhagavad Gita, which relates. And very often in Bhagavad Gita, we are very rightly told of the teachings of Krishna Bhagwan. We are told of the teachings of Krishna Bhagwan because the Bhagavad Gita is that conversation that takes place by the Lord himself, Krishna Bhagwan, to Arjuna. And the words which Krishna Bhagwan speaks are the very essence, we are told in Gita Dhyanam, of the Vedas themselves. They're the very essence. And those teachings are very important for us, but sometimes teaching and learning opportunities come from all sources. Teaching opportunities and learning opportunities come from all sources and from sometimes unexpected circumstances. And we must never lose sight of that, the opportunity to teach or to learn from every experience that we are fortunate to have. And so this shloka in chapter 1, and we know chapter 1. Chapter 1 speaks about Arjuna being positioned between the armies and seeing what he saw in terms of who he was supposed to engage in battle and his utter and complete despondency, dropping down and saying to Krishna Bhagwan, I cannot continue. That is the entirety of chapter 1 before Krishna Bhagwan starts to speak. But the observation of Arjuna in chapter 1, verse 40 is very important. And I invite us all to listen to this observation of Arjuna. Before that, we contemplate on two mantras that we're familiar with of Gita Dhyanam. Hari Om Shri Krishnai Govindai Namo Namaha Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Bhande Jagatguru Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangulang Deyake Kirim Yat Kripatamaham Bhande Paramanandamamadavam Kulakshaye Pranashyanti Kula Dharma Sanatana Dharme Nashte Kulam Krishtam Adharmo Bhivayate Uta Shri Krishnai Govindai Namo Namaha. Arjuna makes the observation when he's positioned between the armies, when he sees who he has to engage in battle. And who does he have to engage in battle? His relatives, his cousins, his grandparents, his uncles, his gurus. These are the persons that he is called upon in this circumstance to fight. And so he is so despondent, and for many reasons that he articulates, one of which he says that when a family, and this is the reason he advances for not wanting to fight, he says, when a family is destroyed, so he is seeing that engaging in this battle, the family will be destroyed. Its traditions become vanquished. Its traditions also are destroyed. So he says when a family is destroyed, the traditions are destroyed. And the rest of the family also becomes destroyed because their piety is lost, their dharma is lost, and they become despondent and in a state of despair. The other shlokas go on to explain that even further, but time will not allow us to explore that. But this is the very potent observation of Arjuna. When a family is destroyed, its traditions are destroyed. And that leads not only the family, but the community to a part of adharma, a part of destruction. Think about it. When a family is destroyed, it loses its traditions. Why are traditions important? Why are traditions important for us? Think about any walk of life and think about whether it's not steeped in some form of tradition, personally, at a family level, at a business level, at a community level, at a societal level. What are our traditions? So let us confine our discussion to a very narrow area, and that of our religion, quote unquote. What is our religion? We say it's not really a religion, it's a way of life. It is Sanatan Dharma. It is a way of life. And our way of life is founded upon tradition. So if you were to ask someone, well, what makes you a Hindu? One of the responses would be, well, I believe in the contents of the Vedas. Not so. How did the Vedas emanate? It wasn't recorded in written form until much later by Ved Vyasji. Prior to that codification and writing, it was an oral tradition from rishi to rishi, from sage to sage passing down. So that tradition, that parampara, that family, that was the way in which we are now able to benefit from the richness of that tradition. If that didn't occur, we wouldn't be who we are or where we are today. We wouldn't be blessed with this rich tradition. Think about when you go to Yagya now. The way in which our scriptural injunctions are disseminated is still by that oral tradition. It is still that way. It may be embellished by the technology, so you may see some pundits now of yours putting up a PowerPoint and what have you. That's fine, but they still speak to it. You don't go to a yagya and they hand you a text and say, here, read that. That's the content of the pravachan for today. You know, your homework is to read it and come back at the next yagya some other time. That's not how we do it. It is, in fact, an oral tradition. So traditions are important. Think of your own family. What are the traditions in your family? They differ. And for example, if you're from deep south, and I'll just use another example, the way in which puja was performed by your pandit from deep south will be a little different from a pandit from central. And it'll be a little different from a pandit in El Dorado or Sangre Grande. Not so, Rama? Right. I sought out Rama because she's originally from El Dorado, living and now back in south. And there are others with a similar experience because there are slightly different traditions that take place. Is it right? Is it wrong? That's not even a question. It's a tradition. And that tradition enhances who we are. Whenever I go to do puja, I try to respect people's tradition once it is within the confines of what our dharma speaks to. But you don't try to change somebody's tradition. Some people, in terms of their attire, there's a particular tradition. How they dress, what they eat, how they eat is different because of their tradition. If you go to North India, the type of food that you will have is very different from the food that you will have in South India. For very often persons, the food that you prepare on a Sunday is very different from the food that you would prepare on a Wednesday. That's part of our tradition. Very often the tradition is on a Saturday you're going to have dal khichdi or you'll have some sort of soup of some kind. Not so, Mom? Yes. And very often the tradition is whatever is left over from Sunday, you're taking that to school or work on a Monday. That's people's tradition. So tradition is not something to be trifled with. It's very important. And it affects all parts of our very persona. And so Arjuna makes the pertinent observation that when a family is destroyed, traditions are lost. And when traditions are lost, not only is that family lost, but by extension, the community itself starts to go into decay. Well, what is Pandit talking about? He first talking about this thing with the priest, then he talking about the poor fellow who died, now he talking about Arjuna. What is the link? The link is there. For us in Trinidad and Tobago, this whole scourge of crime is very real. How many of you know people that have left this country or seriously thinking of leaving this country because of crime? I know plenty people. I know plenty persons who send their children abroad and say, listen, you're there, don't come back. Because things real bad in Trinidad and Tobago, and they're not getting any better. It'll get worse. And that is a truth. And if we think otherwise, we're seriously burying our heads in the sand. But we have a choice. Like Arjuna, we have a choice. What led us to that point? What led us to that point? And I will say very clearly, in my view, one of the major contributing factors is the breakdown in family. The breakdown in family. Because bandits don't give birth to themselves. Gangs don't form themselves. Persons have to have some sort of negative or deviant thought in order for those things to take root and to grow. Every child, every young person goes through a period of deviance where they want to challenge the authority of their parents, or they want to question the authority of their parents or even their teachers. But as we all know, everybody who is here, that deviance is controlled and nipped in the bud, and persons pushed along and directed on the proper path. But if you have no parent, or if parents are absent, or if parents themselves are not prepared to be parents, or if there's an absence of spirituality, then what are you doing? You are forming fertile ground for this deviance to take root, for persons to go into a pathway that is undesirable and for it to blossom. And that's exactly what has happened in this country. So you could put how many vehicles you want on the road. You could call out how many police officers you want from leave and say you're working 24-hour shifts as they're doing now. That is not going to be the corrective action. It is like putting a Band-Aid on a sore that's all over my body and say, you know what, that little plaster will help you. It won't. It will not. The optics will look good because everywhere you're passing, you're seeing a police car, but things not changing. State of emergency, well, we saw how those things work. It does not work. There will be a temporary dip, but the root causes are still there. You now have, and us in South, we used to think about it, we're comfortable. Crime not happening here, crime only happening in Laventille or Morva or Maloney or wherever. Well, if we still have that view, we're really living in fool's paradise. Crime is everywhere. It is everywhere. So how do we deal with it? We have the choice. Arjuna had a choice. And Arjuna's initial choice was, I give up. Me able, I done. And how many persons in this country feel the same way? Don't blame them. But we have another choice. And the other choice is to be cognizant and aware of what the problems are, to understand what are the root causes of the problems and how we deal with those problems. You know, Sadhguru made a very notable comment about people who complain about their ruling sector. He wasn't making it about Trinidad and Tobago, he was making it generally. About people who complain about governments and what have you. He said, well, the government didn't put themselves there. We did. I remember when I was in presentation college many, many years ago, a calypso was written by a young boy, and the strain of the calypso was, is we to blame? Is we to blame for the mess? Is all the troubles, whatever, whatever. Remember that comment very widely at that time. That was in the 1980s. For those who are that old like me, and the problems that were being experienced then. So I'm not getting into the realm of politics because you know what, sometimes we don't have the wherewithal to make that change at an individual level. But if we come together as a family, we have that power. We do, however, have the power within our own families. And that is the power I want us to focus on. What do we do at the level of our family that will strengthen us, will give us that fortitude, and that will allow us to navigate out of this pathway? Understanding and appreciating that that change will not occur overnight. It will not occur overnight. And for many of us, we think, well, you know, I'm not prepared to commit myself to that. I much prefer to migrate. Because we have issues of flooding. You know what I saw 2 days ago? The entirety of London flood. One heavy downpour, road flood, tube flood, buses, the bus stations flood, everybody walking through hole in their thing above their head because it flooded. So you get flood all over. Bhagwan says there'll be flood, there'll be flood. Do what we want. Lack of food? Well, just look around you globally, plenty places without food. Crime, all over the place. All over. Corruption, global. So the things that we experience in Trinidad and Tobago are not different anywhere else. So what do we do? Can we not commit to making this place, which is our home, a better place? And the answer is yes, we should. We start with the family. So the heads of families, what do we do? Do we see our children? First of all, are we prepared to be heads of the families? That's the first thing. We must all ask ourselves that. As a mother, as a father, am I setting the proper example for my children? And if not, what can I do about it? We're not perfect, We all have our shortcomings. But what can I do? If I recognize this is important, and I recognize I have my shortcomings, whatever they may be, then how can I work upon those shortcomings? Because as a parent, your most powerful example for your children is your example. You always hear the statement. Somebody ring on the phone, the child answer the phone, tell that person not there, Mommy said to say she's not home. Because children are innocent. They learn from us, and that's where it starts. And don't think children are not listening or they're not looking. Sometimes a child is playing there, but their ears are so attuned to what you are saying, they pick it up and they give it right back to you. So where does a child learn to speak in a particular way? From us. They're like parrots, us Anil. Shambu, his little parrot there, whatever. So it starts with us. We must do and set the right example. So what does that mean for us? On a Sunday morning or when we have puja or yagya, where are we? Man, I'm busy, yes, I can spend 2 hours or hour and a half. So then don't be surprised when other things occur later on. When you are supposed to be doing things in a particular way in the morning, okay, well, I can't come to Mandir 7 days a week. In the morning when I get up, what am I doing? Do I take the moment out to do my puja? Do I take the moment out to show my children that I'm doing puja and to encourage them to be part of that? That child studied whole night last night, I can't wake them up. I know, I have children. We up and about and they sleep in. I know. It's not easy, but you have to keep at it. Because that investment that you make now in your children will reap rewards for generations to come. It's like any investment. And when you see things occurring in your families, do not be afraid to speak out because you will offend someone. Because everybody is now touchy. Don't tell me nothing about my child. I don't want to hear, whatever. But then when your child goes down a deviant path and you're holding your head and ball, who are you going to? The same ones you didn't want to hear before. So that's where it starts. It starts in the family, and spirituality and religion must be a focal point. And then from there, that influence will gradually spread. And that is our focus as a society. And when the time comes and persons come to you and knock on your door and they say, vote for me, you must ask the question, why should I vote for you? Not because it's red or yellow or green or whatever color, why should I vote for you? And that is my mantra, why am I voting for you? And I say it unequivocally now, right now before me, I'm not voting for any of them. Not one. Devoid of ideas, dare to be obstructionist, whatever it is. Same pack of jokers, you're shuffling all the time. So then do what we can do. Do what we can do. If you are in a position and you see somebody involved in deviant behavior, take the stand and report them. You have to trust somewhere. And you have to have faith in God. And so, brothers and sisters, as I conclude this morning, I know I would have taken much of your time. It is important for us to recognize the value of family. One. We must recognize that our family traditions are very important. Formulating them, preserving them, nurturing them, just like Sanatan Dharma. If our foreparents didn't do that, then we would not be where we are today. Think about in 1950, when this was just a vacant piece of land. If our foreparents didn't commit to have a kutia here and to start things going and to build upon it progressively for generations, where would we be today? There may have been some other business place occupying here. So they held on to that tradition, they nurtured that tradition, and they persevered. Were they perfect? No, but they tried. And so it's incumbent upon us to give it an even greater try. That's what we have to do. And that applies to every facet of our lives. Religion, education, our finances, our health, all of those things need to be preserved and nurtured. They are all part of our tradition. And if that is lost, our families are lost, our community is lost, and Bhagwan help us, our country would be lost. So let's start with what we can do, and I want to commend everybody who either come, participate, view because they can't come, not because I don't want to come, so everybody who viewing, it must be because you can't come. Last night I saw a group of people who used to be in the Mandir, and I tell them, you are the Florida chapter of the Krishna Mandir. They were sitting together having a satsang and they video called me. And it was a set of young people who now not young, who were members of the youth group back in the 1980s. I wouldn't call their names. Some of them view because they reside abroad. And it was a wonderful thing to see that they still preserve that tradition. So that's the kind of thing we want to see and inculcate in our lives. Prem se bole Bindraban Bihari Lal ki jai. Let us come forward now and perform our arti again, wearing the masks, sanitizing the hands, wearing the gloves as we come forward.
जगदीश्वरी दया करो माँ महेश्वरी कृपा करो माँ जगदीश्वरी दया करो माँ महेश्वरी कृपा करो माँ करो माँ।
जगदीश्वरी दया करो माँ, महेश्वरी कृपा करो माँ।
जगदीश्वरी दया करो माँ, महेश्वरी कृपा करो माँ।
माँ पार्वती दया करो माँ,
माँ पार्वती दया करो माँ।
माँ पार्वती दया करो माँ,
माँ पार्वती दया करो माँ।
माँ पार्वती दया करो माँ, माँ लक्ष्मी कृपा करो माँ।
माँ पार्वती दया करो माँ, माँ लक्ष्मी कृपा करो माँ।
जगदीश्वरी दया करो माँ, महेश्वरी 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 कृपा करो माँ।
महेश्वरी कृपा करो माँ।
महेश्वरी कृपा करो माँ।
मानस भजरे गुरु चरणं, दुस्तर भव सागर तरणं।
मानस भजरे गुरु चरणं, दूसर भव सागर तरणं।
मानस भजरे गुरु चरणं, दूसर भव सागर तरणं।
मानस भजरे गुरु चरणं, दूसर भव सागर तरणं।
गुरु महाराज गुरु जय जय।
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 भोलेनाथ सद्गुरु जय जय।
भोलेनाथ सद्गुरु जय जय।
साईनाथ सद्गुरु जय जय।
सत्य साईनाथ सद्गुरु जय जय।
मानस भजरे गुरु चरणं, दुस्तर भव सागर तरणं।
मानस भजरे गुरु चरणं, दूसर भव सागर तरणं।
मानस भजरे गुरु चरणं, दुस्तर भव सागर तरणं।
मानस भजरे गुरु चरणं, दूसर भव सागर तरणं।
ॐ नमः शिवाय, ॐ नमः शिवाय, ॐ नमः शिवाय, शिवाय नमः।
ॐ नमः शिवाय, ॐ नमः शिवाय, ॐ नमः शिवाय, शिवाय नमः।
अरुणाचल शिव, अरुणाचल विघ्ननाशक गजानना
लंबोदर गजानना विघ्ननाशक गजानना
लंबोदर गजानना विघ्ननाशक गजानना
लंबोदर गजानना विघ्ननाशक गजानना
दुःखनाशक गजानना भक्तरक्षक गजानना
दुःखनाशक गजानना भक्तरक्षक गजानना
शिव गौरी स्नेहपात्रं वक्रतुण्ड गजानना
शिव गौरी स्नेहपात्रं वक्रतुण्ड गजानना शिव गौरी स्नेहपात्रं वक्रतुण्ड गजानना शिव गौरी स्नेहपात्रं वक्रतुण्ड गजानना
वक्रतुण्ड गजानना सर्वेश्वर विघ्नेश्वर पद्मपावन गजानना
सर्वेश्वर विघ्नेश्वर पद्मपालन गजानना
लंबोदर गजानना विघ्ननाशक गजानना
लंबोदर गजानना विघ्ननाशक गजानना
प्रथमेश्वर बुद्धिदाता भक्तपालक गजानना
प्रथमेश्वर बुद्धिदाता भक्तपालक गजानना
गजानना हे गजानना गजानना हे गजानना प्रथमेश्वर बुद्धिदाता भक्तपालक गजानना
प्रथमेश्वर बुद्धिदाता भक्तपालक गजानना
भक्तपालक गजानना परम शोभन दुष्ट हंता संत रक्षक गजानना
परम शोभन दुष्ट हंता संत रक्षक गजानना
लंबोदर गजानना विघ्ननाशक गजानना
लंबोदर गजानना विघ्ननाशक गजानना
दुःखनाशक गजानना गजानना हे गजानना
गजानना हे गजानना
गजानना हे गजानना
गजानना हे गजानना
गजानना हे गजानना
गजानना हे गजानना
लंबोदर गजानना विघ्ननाशक गजानना
लंबोदर गजानना विघ्ननाशक गजानना
दुखनाशक गजानना भक्त रक्षक गजानना
दुखनाशक गजानना भक्त रक्षक गजानना
भक्त रक्षक गजानना
भक्त रक्षक गजानना
प्रेम से बोले श्री गणेश भगवान की जय. Before we conclude this morning, a few announcements. Firstly, I want to extend a very warm welcome to each and every one of you this morning who've joined us here physically, and for those of you who have also viewed us online and will continue to do so during the course of the week. May Bhagwanji's blessings to you and your family. May you continue to enjoy all of the good and the noble and wonderful things in this life. Also, you're reminded those who would like to sit on a Sunday morning to perform puja or hawan, please give your names to Mrs. Rama Umrao, or Rama is seated at the back, and we will make the necessary arrangements to accommodate you and your family on a Sunday morning. Upcoming events. These are particularly geared towards the upcoming Ganesh Utsav celebration. Next Sunday, we will be proceeding to bring the Murti of Ganesh Ji here to the Mandir. So we are asking persons who are interested to join us at the Vishnu Mandir Esperance Village from 7:30, and we will be bringing the Murti from there to the Mandir on that morning. Those of you who can't make it, please join us, as we expect to be back at the Mandir here just after 8:30. So we would like you to be here present when the Murti comes on next Sunday morning. So we'll be gathering at 7:30 by the Mandir at Esperance Village. That's the Vishnu Mandir for 7:30, and then we will be coming by procession here at the Mandir. Following that, on Tuesday, that will be the 30th, we will be having the Pran Pratishta ceremony, and that will take place at 10 a.m. in the morning. So on Tuesday the 30th, the Pran Pratishta ceremony will take place at 10 a.m. And following that, on the 31st, and thereafter every evening from 6 p.m. to roughly 7, we will be having evening puja for those persons who would like to come and offer your puja and to make your to Charhawi and so on. That will be from 6 p.m. every evening from the 31st. The mandir will be open during the course of the day, and if you would like to come when you have the time, the pujari will accommodate you to come and make your offerings as well. From the 6th of, so that will be from the 31st to the 5th of September. From the 6th of September, the 6th, 7th, and 8th, those 3 nights, we will be having Yagya, and officiating will be Pandit Devendra Rampasad. He will be officiating as a Vyas for those 3 nights. So that's the 6th, 7th, and 8th of September. And then the Visarjan, or closing ceremony and immersion, will take place right here at the Mandir on the morning of the 9th of September. So the 6th, 7th, and 8th will be the nights of the Yagya. On the morning of the 9th from 10 a.m., we will be having the Visarjan ceremony. So if you would like to come, again, on the morning, you are invited to do so right here at the Mandir. Again, because of circumstance and our present circumstances, we're not going to the seaside. We will be doing the Visarjan here. So you're all invited to attend. So those are all of the dates and times, and the invitations with those dates and times are being and will continue to be circulated on social media. So please look out for it on WhatsApp or on our Mandir platform, and please share the invitation with persons. So the nights of the Yagya, we will be having secured parking, we'll have security, and you will have the use of the school compound, so you can come for those nights. We will be ending at 8:30 on those nights as well, so that we're finishing at a reasonable time, and any bhojan will be by way of a takeaway, so that you take away and we will not be having eating here on the premises. Those are the announcements. Yoga class tomorrow from 5:30, you're reminded of that. And all of the other regular activities of the Mandir. Those of you who would like to make donations, we welcome those. please make your donations either to members of the management committee or via our information provided on screen. As we conclude, I want to extend hearty congratulations to all of our young persons who performed so very well at their recent tertiary examinations. I will not call names because some are absent, so I will do that when the others are here. I also want to bid short-term farewell to Sharvani, who will be returning to university this week, and she will be continuing her studies there. We have others who will be leaving us shortly, and we will extend our farewells at that time. So we now invite everyone to stand as we engage in final arti and then closing.
आरती कुंज बिहारी की, श्री गिरिधर कृष्ण मुरारी की। आरती कुंज बिहारी की, श्री गिरिधर कृष्ण मुरारी की। आरती कुंज बिहारी की, श्री गिरिधर कृष्ण मुरारी की। गले में वैजयंती माला, माला बजावे मुरली मधुर बाला, बाला श्रवण में कुंदन जल काला, जल काला। नंद के यन श्री आनंद कंद, मोहन ब्रिज चंद, राधिका रमन बिहारी की। श्री गिरिधर कृष्ण मुरारी की। आरती कुंज बिहारी की, श्री गिरिधर कृष्ण मुरारी की। गगन सम अंग कांति काली, काली राधिका चमक रही आली, आली। लखन में ठाढ़े बनमाली, बनमाली। भ्रमर से अलग कस्तूरी तिलक, चंद्र से झलक ललित छवि श्यामा प्यारी की। श्री गिरिधर कृष्ण मुरारी की। आरती कुंज बिहारी की, श्री गिरिधर कृष्ण मुरारी की। कनक में मोर मुकुट विलसे, विलसे। देवता दर्शन को तरसे, तरसे। गगन सुर सुमन राशि बरसे, बरसे। बाजे मुरचंग मधुर मृदंग, वारिणी संग अतुल रति गोप कुमारी की। श्री गिरिधर कृष्ण मुरारी की। आरती कुंज बिहारी की, श्री गिरिधर कृष्ण मुरारी की। जहाँ थी प्रगट बड़ी गंगा, गंगा कलुष कली आरी श्री भंगा, भंगा। स्मरण से ओत मोह भंगा, भंगा। बसे शिव शीश जटा के बीच, हरे अगति चरण छवि श्री बनवारी की। श्री गिरिधर कृष्ण मुरारी की। आरती कुंज बिहारी की, श्री गिरिधर कृष्ण मुरारी की। चमकती उज्ज्वल तटरी रीनु, बज रही वृंदावन रीनु, वीनु। चाहुर सी गोपियाल दीनु, दीनु। हसत मृदु मंद चांदनी चंद, कतक भव चंद तेरा सुनो दीन भिखारी की। श्री गिरिधर कृष्ण मुरारी की।
Prabhu, we've come before you this morning filled with all love. We've come before you in complete and utter surrender. We have that shraddha and that faith that our prayers would be heard and that interventions would be made in our lives, that we would be strengthened and fortified by your grace, that all difficulty, all sankat, all sickness would be removed. We pray this morning as well for all persons who are faced with some difficulty, who are affected or afflicted in some way, whose families are in turmoil. We pray for them. O Prabhu, you are the divine light that can guide us out of the darkness. Through you, all things are possible, for we recognize you as mother and father, as family, as friend, as knowledge, as wealth, as everything. We surrender ourselves completely to you. Guide us always, inspire us always, protect us always. We join together in closing mantra. Hari Om Tvameva Mata Chapita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhu Chaseka Tvameva Tvameva Vidya Dravinam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Om Asatu Ma Sadgamayam Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamayam Mrityurma Amritam Gamayam Om Shanti 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 Hari Om. प्रेम से बोले श्री गणेश भगवान की जय, उमापति महादेव की जय, आज शक्ति जगदम्बा देवी मैया की जय, श्री पवन पुत्र हनुमान की जय, वृंदावन बिहारी लाल की जय। प्रेम से बोले श्री सच्चे सनातन धर्म की जय। Turn to those around you. सब कोई जय सीताराम, जय सीताराम, जय सीताराम। May you have a very powerful week ahead. May Bhagwan bless you all. Those of you celebrating birthdays or anniversaries, may Bhagwan bless you. We look forward to seeing you with us next week, Sunday. Again, remember special service. We will be bringing the Murti of Ganesh Ji here to the Mandir. So we look forward to seeing you all with us then. Jai Sitaram all. Stay safe.